Pronouncements about the future, they are always iffy, and they used to be what fortune tellers and psychics did for a living, but it does seem as if recently everyone has become an expert futurist talking confidently about what's going to happen in the future. And they predict that everything from home life to travel to work is going to be utterly transformed following the corona crisis. And note that they are so full of confidence, and they speak with zero humility, many of them. And that's of course always a reason to be skeptical. And also notice that 90% of their predictions, they are very negative. If I hear the word unprecedented once more, I think my head is going to explode. And I wish that these confident people, they had read the Danish humorist Storm P. that was once asked just after the Second World War how Denmark was going to look over the next decade or so. And he cleverly said, well, predictions are difficult, especially about the future. So this is actually going to be the last episode in the Corona Anxiety series. And we're going to move on to other things. We're going to touch on what that's going to be at the end of this episode. But remember that this is about your well-being, improving your well-being, and hopefully in the process also making all of us a little bit wiser. So back to predictions and what the future may look like. Our brains, they are from evolution shaped to be prediction machines. And they're constantly trying to piece together the information that we have to predict the future. And of course, mainly to try to avoid danger. And there may indeed be some real changes following the corona crisis. But for most of all, I think I can guarantee you that it will feel more or less the same as it did before. And that's for two fascinating reasons, two fascinating psychological concepts. One is called hedonistic adaptation, and that's the idea that when something happens to us, good or bad, we do regress back to a mean, so our mood stays relatively the same in spite of big changes. So if we win the proverbial £1 million in the lottery, yes, we will be happy for a while, but after a relatively short period of time, things get back to normal. The same if something terrible happens to us, say the loss of a limb, breakup of a relationship, or financial loss, something like that. Within a period of time, things after a lull will get back to where the mood was before the crisis. There is, however, that caveat that when negative things happen, by and large, it takes longer to return to that mean that we had at the mood or the mood mean that we had before. But still, it does happen for most of us, and it's called hedonistic adaptation. The other concept is also fascinating, and it's called the focusing illusion. So what that basically means is that we exaggerate the impact of the change that's going to come. And nature has possibly equipped us with this focusing illusion because it makes us work very hard on the task ahead of us. Historically speaking, we've always exaggerated changes after crisis. Look at the world wars. Yes, the world did change somewhat after the world wars, but not as much as people had predicted. After 9/11, all the experts said, oh, people will flee the big cities. No, they didn't do that. So things do stay pretty much the same, and old habits, they are surprisingly strong. So with all of these caveats and warnings in mind, I'm going to stick my neck out and try to see if I can come up with a few predictions what's going to happen after this corona crisis. And I'm going to come up with 3 fears that I have and 5 hopes. Let's start with the fears. I do worry that we will have less human contact. The world has gone virtual now and it has helped us enormously, but I do fear that real human contact will be at a premium in the time to come, that we will try to avoid each other. I also fear that we will touch each other less, as if we get some kind of collective OCD where we are scared of each other and think that everybody is carrying deadly germs. We already, as it is, don't touch each other much here in Northern Europe, and I fear that that could get worse. Finally, I also fear for our economy. And you could ask, why does a psychiatrist worry about the economy? But I do worry about the economy because it is strongly linked to economic crisis. They are strongly linked to a surge in anxiety and in depression and also psychotic conditions. And that can actually lead to increase in drug abuse, drinking alcohol, taking drugs, and ultimately suicide. So this is a kind of death of despair that is unfortunately intimately linked to financial crisis and also unemployment very much. So I do actually applaud the governments that are trying to avoid mass unemployment. So credit where credit is due. I'm also hopeful for the future. And I think that this crisis has shown that there's been a lot of beautiful collaboration across classes, across the world, really. Research. It's amazing what the human species can achieve when it puts its mind to it. So collaboration is absolutely essential. And of course, many of the crises that we are facing now as a human species, it is something that can't be solved government or nationally. We do have to go internationally. Unfortunately, there are also examples of the opposite, I have to admit, where hiding behind the corona crisis, some people have tried to increase their power and hold on to power and become presidents for life and all those kind of things. But without collaboration, we are definitely doomed. I'm hopeful because I've seen a lot of outstanding community spirit, people that have actually been truly altruistic towards others. And we need more of that. We need less of the greed and the power grabbing and more of this altruism. Because of course, as we talked about before, our own happiness is very much dependent on whether we actually create good things for other people. I'm also hopeful that we will have less identity politics, so small groups of individuals that think that they are victims of something. But unfortunately, it also seems to have flourished. We are, after all, just one human species, and we cannot solve the challenges ahead if we just group ourselves into small groups that are trying to claim this and that. We have to collaborate. And finally, I think, and I'm pretty sure, that this crisis has increased our awareness of what's really important in life. In fact, a recent survey showed that 85% of people in Britain, they wanted something to stay from the lockdown. So some of these things, to keep some of these things that they experienced during the lockdown. And I think it was the simplicity that was really attractive. You don't need to drive a Lamborghini along the Mediterranean coast to feel high or happy. Most of us, we have the happiness just in front of us, but we need to open our eyes and see what it is that we have and feel a sense of gratitude. That always helps. I think that these predictions may come back to haunt me, but I stuck out my neck and that's where we are. Remember to comment and share these episodes if you can. And from now on, we are going to embark on something very new in virtual well-being. We will actually try to interview some trend-setting people, some people that have had an impact on other people's mental health, some of my patients and some other important people in the mental health world. I hope that will be interesting for you. I'm looking forward to it, that's for sure. And of course, we will also continue with episodes on some of the big questions in life. So what is quality of life? What is humility? What is knowledge? How do we avoid getting depressed? Those kind of essential things. I can't wait, and we will be back after the summer break. Just to sum up on the future, of course this pandemic will change us for better or for worse, but the change is likely to be a lot smaller than you think. And also remember that you're not just a passive bystander to the future. No, through our actions, we can and we must participate in creating a better future for others and for ourselves. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you after the summer break.